What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video from the 10-7 MMA show. And today's video is a video that I've been wanting to make for a while, and I'm pretty excited about it. Now, if you guys have been watching the channel for a little bit, you may know that I am a wholehearted, massive Khamzat Chimaev fan. In fact, he's been my favorite fighter since 2020, since he first burst onto the scene and was just steamrolling people. Had 2 back-to-back victories within 10 days in 2 different weight classes. It was incredible. It was, I think, in his first 4 fights, he had he received 2 significant strikes total, some crazy statistics like that. Like, he had more fights than he had received significant strikes. He was blowing everybody away. And even back then, when he was new on the scene, people were saying that when Kamaru Usman was super dominant and at the top of the division for the welterweight division, people said they thought he could beat him then. He had that fight scheduled with Leon Edwards, who was way up there, way out of his league at that time, at least in terms of the rankings. But Khamzat was, I think, by most people favored to beat Leon Edwards. That fight never came to fruition because of his illnesses. And man, all this hype just had to be put on layaway for so long. But finally, now, after years of waiting, after illnesses, after thinking that Khamzat might have to retire because of health issues, because of visa issues, and now he has a thyroid surgery, and now it looks like he's going to have no visa issues whatsoever, according to Dana White, based on now the current leadership in the U.S. I mean, we finally have it, and it looks like it's going to be next. And this is one of the reasons why I was so excited about UFC 312. Sure, I want to see that main event, but what it really meant to me was we're finally going to get this massive payoff of Khamzat Chimaev getting a title shot, and I believe winning the title. And once he wins that title, I believe he will go on to be the biggest superstar in the history of the UFC, bigger than Conor. The reason why I believe he will be bigger than Conor, and that why I think a lot of people maybe think he'll be huge, but not as big as Conor, is because I think Khamzat Chimaev is a new breed of superstar. So it's kind of like before we had Conor, maybe we had somewhat of the prototype with Muhammad Ali and some other fighters, but we didn't know that Conor was going to be as big as he was going to be because he was the first of his kind in a large part. Maybe there were other people that had similarities, but Conor was Conor. And I think this is something where we've been looking for a Conor clone to come into the UFC and to wow us in a very similar way. Khamzat wows us, but in his own way, in a different way. And I think as he climbs up and finally can start cementing himself as a super legitimate, just ultra dominant fighter in the UFC, and the way he's going to do it and the way he's going to move around weight classes and everything, I don't know, it's just so exciting. Jesse on Fire said this a long time ago, that when you are along for the ride with the star, and you're a fan of them, and you're watching them rise up the ranks, and then finally getting there, and then building that legacy, enjoy it, because these types of stars don't come around every day, don't come around every year, don't come around every even 5 years. Who knows, right? It's a rarity, and it's something that we should appreciate. And if you are a Khamzat fan like I am, I don't know, it's exciting to me. And I think it's a great role model. I think there's so many things about him that are terrific. So it's just all around really, really cool. Now, I do want to say that I made a video about this on Saturday. I was very, very impressed with Dricus Du Plessis, and I'm actually a really big fan of his as well for a number of reasons. I think he's tremendous on the mic. I think he also sets a great example. I think he's a phenomenal martial artist. I loved his striking. I will no longer say that I think his striking looks bizarre. It just looks the way it looks. I think he's found an awesome technique. And by the way, his striking lands, his kicks land, his teeps are powerful. He had spinning back fists, spinning elbows. I think what people get hung up on, I should say me in particular, is the footwork doesn't look normal. The constant stance switching and the way he does it, it looks clumsy, but it works. And it works not just that he's winning, but it works meaning in terms of the striking accuracy and the damage that he was able to lay into on Sean Strickland. So he's amazing. And this fight is even more incredible now. Now we see this dominant victory that he had over Sean Strickland. Everybody's loving Dricus. A lot of people are now picking Dricus to beat Khamzat. I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, it could. Anything can happen. I still think Khamzat should be a strong favorite here. But it's just making for such an incredible buildup. And while I did kind of want to see Khamzat go in and fight Sean Strickland just because of the beef, I think this is going to be so dope. And I cannot wait. I cannot wait. And because everybody is so enamored by DDP right now. If Khamzat does get this victory, like I believe he will, it's going to be so impressive. I can't wait. So I think we are in for a historic rise and a really fun time as UFC fans. So let's get into the two records. And this is, the more you think about it, this matchup is just absolutely unbelievable. Khamzat undefeated in the UFC, 8 victories. So we remember some of these early victories, the back-to-back within 10 days. That was crazy. Gerald Meerschaert, that's actually a great win that a lot of people have maybe not given as much credit to, only because he got a 17-second knockout. But that was a phenomenal knockout. He showed his great Muay Thai. Khamzat is really, really good striking, and we're going to get into that later. Li Jingliang, the Leech, who was at the presser actually asking questions this last week at UFC 312. I think that was a great win. Absolutely, purely dominant. Now we get into the first fight that so many people are like, well, Khamzat was kind of exposed against Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns was an amazing fighter. At this time, he was not too far out of fighting Kamaru Usman for the belt. He was a top contender, and Khamzat won. So I don't know what people are. Yeah, he had a tough fight. He's human. That can happen sometimes. Also, he didn't follow his coach's advice from my recollection, and they wanted him to follow a different game plan. He did not listen. Whatever. I know people will say I'm making excuses for him, but it is what it is. That's what happened. And he still won. So whatever. Kevin Holland obliterated him. Nobody has done that to Kevin Holland. Well, I guess his last fight, he got submitted pretty quickly, but still, it was a very dominant performance. Very few people have done that to Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland's a great fighter, regardless of what a lot of hate he's been getting lately. Kamaru Usman, this fight was so underrated. He dominated Kamaru Usman in round 1, and he was sick going into that fight, and he severely injured his hand in round 1. And again, people are going to say these are excuses. I'm sorry, this is the truth. It's the truth, and it is what it is. So if you want to, maybe you could also argue that Kamaru had other injuries that were not disclosed that we don't know about. That's fair. But all I can say is if people are wondering why he slowed down, there's a clear explanation. There's 2 explanations as to why. And this is going to go back to the cardio, which we're going to discuss later in terms of how his cardio matches up with DDP. Because a lot of people think Khamzat's the best fighter in round 1, but after that, he can't sustain it and he's terrible. And then you have a chance to beat him in rounds 3, 4, and 5. I just don't agree. I think that's based on bad evidence, and I'm going to talk about that more. And then we come to Robert Whittaker. Holy smokes. This is where everybody got back on the Khamzat train. And so Khamzat is going to be a problem for everybody in this division. I agree. I think he's gonna beat DDP. I kind of want to say he's going to steamroll him. And this is no shame to DDP. This is no disrespect to DDP, but I just think that Khamzat's speed and his aggression and the way he's such a threat on both the feet and grappling, I think he's going to get it done. All right, now we move on to DDP. He's 9-0 in the UFC, also undefeated in the UFC. So he's not undefeated overall. He's had 2 losses, but that's outside of the UFC. So it's basically within the UFC, undefeated versus undefeated. And we all know his amazing resume. I mean, he's beaten the best of the best. I mean, look at this. Derek Brunson, amazing wrestler. Whittaker as well. Not as dominant as Khamzat's victory, but he still won nonetheless. Sean Strickland, obviously twice, as we know. And Israel Adesanya, that was a great victory. I think Khamzat would beat Adesanya and Strickland as well. But I'm just saying, now he's got the belt here and 2 title defenses. So let's go. What a matchup. Now let's talk about the striking. DDP's striking is amazing, unorthodox, and we saw that he has a massive diversity of strikes. We saw spinning back fists, spinning elbows, roundhouses, spinning kicks, wheel kicks, amazing teeps. So don't get me wrong, his striking is probably more varied and more powerful than Khamzat's, but don't sleep on Khamzat's striking. He's trained at Tiger Muay Thai, I think other Muay Thai gyms in Thailand. He spent a lot of time in his striking. Again, he does have that one knockout against Gerald Meerschaert, and he stood and struck with both Gilbert Burns and Kamaru Usman. I think his striking is underrated, and his striking is complemented by the fact that people are constantly on the defensive with respect to his takedowns, which he shoots. They're lightning fast. They're so quick. And this is, again, going to be a massive problem, I think, for DDP, is the speed and the height at which he can drop to shoot those takedowns. He can shoot them from really far away too. Now, I don't think anybody in the UFC can do what Khamzat does in that respect. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about grappling. And obviously, DDP is no slouch in terms of grappling. But will he be able to use it offensively against Khamzat? I highly doubt it. Khamzat has 100% takedown defense in the UFC. 100%. It's crazy. I think Kamaru Usman used to have one until he fought Khamzat. I think Kobe scored a takedown on him at some point, and Leon Edwards did too. But I mean, obviously Khamzat really had him down and was really working him in that round one of their fight. So I don't think Dricus is going to be able to be offensive with it. I mean, I think he might try and potentially threaten the takedown. I doubt it, though. I don't think it's going to be an issue for Khamzat. And honestly, getting into a grappling exchange with Khamzat would eventually, I imagine, give Khamzat the advantage. Whereas Khamzat is just going to have a massive grappling advantage. As great as DDP might be on the ground, I still think Khamzat is levels above. Khamzat even said, hey, Robert Whittaker landed a takedown on DDP. What do you think I'm going to do to him? I think it's fair. And I know a lot of people are riding high on Dricus right now because he dominated Strickland. It was such a great fight, and I get that. But they're the most opposite styles, Strickland and Khamzat. So I just don't think there's any relevance there in terms of looking at this fight and being like, oh, I wasn't picking DDP before, but now I am. I see people online, like MMA Guru has now switched to saying he's picking Dricus to beat Khamzat. I also think he really likes Dricus, and I get that as a fan. You really like a fighter, you're going to support them. But it just makes no sense to me. I don't think there's a logical connection between watching that fight and as an indication of how this fight will play out. And finally, we'll go to the cardio. Dricus has proven himself time and again that he has phenomenal cardio, despite what he may look like in certain rounds. There's times in the fight where it looks like he might be slowing down just from the way he looks, not the way he's throwing shots, maybe sometimes the way he's throwing shots. But then all of a sudden, it's almost like a rope-a-dope. He's back in it the next round, or even that same round, and just going crazy, going wild with tons of energy, smiling, having fun. Clearly, DDP has no cardio issues. But everybody's saying that DDP is going to have the cardio advantage over Khamzat, and that Khamzat is great in round one, maybe round two, but after that, DDP is going to have the advantage. I just don't see how this narrative is still continuing. This narrative began because of one fight where when he fought Gilbert Burns, I guess it looked like he slowed down in round three. And then again, Kamaru Usman, it looked like he maybe slowed down in round three. As I mentioned, for the Gilbert Burns, first of all, Gilbert Burns was at 170. Kamaru Usman, he was very, very sick going into that fight. He has talked about that way later after the fact. And his whole plan was from the get-go to go crazy and try and win the fight in round one. He said this on a podcast because of his illness. And then on top of that, he injured his hand. So that threw off his game plan as well. So it may have been a combination of cardio and his hand injury as to why he didn't go for more grappling exchanges and takedowns in that fight. Since then, he's had thyroid surgery, removed half of his thyroid, which has alleviated a lot of those health issues that he was having. On top of that, he's changed where he's trained. He also mentioned that training in the heat in the UAE was problematic. Now he trains in the mountains of Russia, where he's actually improving his cardio because training at those higher altitudes increases the amount of red blood cells, I believe. I think that's the science behind it. His coach was interviewed during his last training camp before he fought Robert Whittaker, and they talked about how he was going to have more red blood cells in his body when he went to go have that fight, even after he leaves that region, just because he trained there so long. So I think the cardio issues for Khamzat Chimaev is fake news. I don't think it's a real thing. I think he will be amazing in the later rounds, but I think he's going to be extremely dangerous in the first round because I think he's going to be dangerous in all the rounds. But anyways, we're finally here. This is finally happening. And when will this happen? I know some people are saying we may have to wait till October. I don't know why. I think that's because they think, again, Khamzat needs to, because he had long layovers before, he's going to keep needing long layovers. I don't think so. He got through Robert Whittaker so quickly, I think pretty much unscathed. I think there was only one leg kick that was landed. And I think his health issues are in the past. I pray they are, but I really believe they are. So why not? Maybe this will happen in June. Who knows? Depends on how quickly DDP can turn around. Maybe July, maybe International Fight Week. But this is going to be incredible, guys. And I don't know. I hope you're as excited as I am, because I think even if you're not a massive Khamzat fan, once you see this fight, once you see him get in there, and if it goes like the way I think it's going to go, and he's going to win dominantly, he's going to blow everybody away, we're going to begin a new era where he's just going to sit there as the king of the hill, just defend, move up, take on light heavyweight. I even think he could take a crack at heavyweight. Triple champ, first ever. He said it long ago. He was going to be the first ever triple champ. So it's exciting times. And I don't think it could happen to a better person, because I do think he's a great person all around. and an amazing fighter. I can't wait. He's my favorite fighter. That's why he's my favorite fighter, because of all those things. So here we go. The rise of Khamzat Chimaev. It is time. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you like this video, make sure to click that like button. And if you want to see more from the 10-7 channel, make sure to click subscribe. Thank you guys so much for joining. We'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.